Now, the cool thing about Montage is all of the voice content of the Motif XF synthesizer is inside of Montage. It shows up as what we call a single part performance. Now, the version of firmware I'm using in here is version 2.0. This allows the import of Motif XF performances. XS, XF, and MoXF performances can all be loaded in. So what you get is all the voices and performances of the Motif XF available to you inside of Montage. But that's just where it begins. You can do so much with this content by adding some of the motion control things to the Motif XF performance content or the voice content. Another thing to keep in mind is at YamahaSynth.com, there is a cloud-based app that's called FM Converter. What FM Converter does is it takes classic content from the DX and TX series instruments of the 80s and converts it to a Montage format. So I actually have inside of Montage the entire ROM cartridges from the original DX7. And I'll show you what you can do with those as well by bringing them into the 2000s with new effects, with cool motion control things, and so on. So let me show a little bit of the Motif XF content, and I'll kind of show how you can blend these two Montage content and the legacy Motif XF content. So the first one I want to show is one that's called Winds and Strings. And what Winds and Strings is exactly that. I used to use this all the time when I was showing the orchestral sounds in the Motif XF. So Winds and Strings. I love this performance because it's very dynamic. Again, this is coming from the Motif XF. The great thing about playing this Motif XF content is we upgraded the digital to analog converters on the Montage to one that's called Pure Analog Circuit. It simulates the sound of Montage running through a nice boutique hand-wired analog preamp. That's what Pure Analog Circuit technology does. So everything just sounds fuller. The lows sound punchier, the mid-range is nice and detailed, and the high is very pristine and not super strident. It's a really great sound. So your Motif XF content just sounds better in Montage. Now check this out. What I want to do is I want to combine a Montage performance with this Motif XF Winds and Strings performance. So before I showed this orchestral brass swell. So this is a program voice that has all of the cool super knob stuff added to it. Now what I want to do is do a thing called performance merge. So I'll take this orchestral brass swell that you see right here. It's 3 parts. Now another great upgrade from the Motif XF with Montage is that Motif XF had 4 parts on a performance. Well, now I have 8 full parts on a performance. So I have 5 parts open here. 4 of those I'm going to add by touching on part 4 here, and I'm going to do a thing called performance merge. Now I know what the name of this sound is, so I'm going to go ahead and search. You can text-based search inside the Montage category search engine now. So if I just type in winds, I find Winds and Strings right here. So now you can see that those 3 parts that were already there, I've now merged an additional 4. So now I have both these sounds together. So I have this cool, very dynamic orchestral performance now. I still have one more part left. So if I want to add something like a timpani, I'll hit part 8, type in T-I-M-P, and there's the timpani. I'm going to do something kind of cool with this timpani. There are 2 views of performance in here. One of them shows me 8 parts. If I hit the performance home button a second time, I get an overview of all 16 parts of the performance. So I have parts 1 through 4, 5 through 8, and the screen changes a little bit too. As I touch one of the parts, I see how many elements are in each part. An element is like an oscillator. Each part in an AWM2 voice can have 8 oscillators, which is pretty cool. So I have this very dynamic timpani right here. Now if I touch things like the keyboard range, I can set the range so it's wherever it is on the keyboard. I also get an overview of the range on all the parts that I see of where they're sitting inside this performance. Now, if I touch velocity, what I can do with this one is I can set the velocity. You can see in the screen here, the velocity of that sound here, and I can touch keyboard, and I've set the low velocity, so if I hit it hard, what that does is it velocity compresses that sound. So I have it at 125 to 127, so I'll go ahead and touch the keyboard off now. So it only will sound when I really hit it hard. The last thing I'll do, when I select any of the parts, if I select the entire performance, you have this whole section of control knobs over here on the left. Things like cutoff frequency, resonance, so the filter cutoff and resonance, the timbre, attack, decay, sustain, and release. Now, if I'm touching at the very top of the performance, that affects all parts. But if I touch just that timpani part, now it's only affecting just the timpani part. So if I go to EQ effects and I go all the way over and have reverb send, I can turn the reverb all the way up on just the timpani sound. So when I hit it, I get this really big washed in reverb timpani. So I get this very dramatic. So what did I do? I took the Montage orchestral brass swell, I added the Motif XF performance winds and strings, and then I added a timpani part and created this, all out of one screen. It's very easy to use this instrument. It really is. So with version 2.0 firmware, one of the things that's great is that they added a lot of cool shortcuts to do some cool things with the super knob. So I'm going to play this CFX stage. Now this is a single part CFX piano. It sounds great. So CFX stage. So what I want to do is I'm going to add two parts to this. One of them will be a string part and the other one will be a choir part, and I'll assign the super knob to bring those in. It's really cool how this works. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add part 2 here, and I'm going to select ballad strings, and I'll text-based search this. Ballad strings. It's a single part string section. Right? So what I want to do is I want to assign the super knob to turn up the volume real quick. So I'm going to, with this one, I'll touch edit. Now when I select a part, like I have here, it drops me into part edit. And you can always tell where you're at in Montage by looking in the upper left-hand corner, edit part 2 common, as opposed to if I touch the common button, that's the entire performance I'm looking at. I want to just affect the volume of part 2. That's a part setting, so I have it selected here, and I'm going to turn the volume all the way down. Now, whenever I have a selectable parameter in Montage that can be assigned to a controller, this control assign light lights up. So I'll touch that and move the super knob. Now, that's already assigned. So I have the piano when the super knob's all the way down. Now, as I move the super knob up, so the cool thing about this is that if I want to play this string and piano sound, I don't have to move my hand off the keyboard to turn up the strings. I can just use the super knob with the FC7 attached to do this dynamically. So that's cool. Now, whenever I'm even at a lower edit and I touch performance, it takes me right to the main performance page. So I said I would add a choir to this next one. So I'll touch part 3 and I'll add a ah choir. Ah. Type in ah, and there's the ah choir here. Now I'm going to do a little different movement with this. It'll still be the super knob controlling the volume, but check this out. I touch the ah choir, drop into edit, looking at that part, select the part, turn the volume all the way down, and assign the super knob. Again, it's a macro control knob, so I can assign multiple parameters to that knob to move in different ways. So you see right now the curve type I used with the string section was a linear curve. It just got louder. What if I change the curve type to something like trapezoid? So trapezoid, you can kind of get an idea of what it'll do. The choir will get louder, and then at the top of the super knob, it actually fades out. but the string section will keep getting louder. So if I touch this in here, I have it all set up here, you'll hear exactly that happen here. Just piano, as I turn the super knob up, they both are getting louder. Now the choir is gonna, as I move it all the way to the top, the choir will fade out at the end. Again, just very easy to set the super knob. This is part of what version 2.0 brought to Montage. We've had 4 major firmware updates with Montage. Each one adds new sounds, new control, and new workflow updates. And this one's no different. It's a dynamic, changing, cool instrument. Montage truly is very, very cool this way. So once again, this is Blake Angelos from Yamaha. You can check out the Montage music synthesizer and all Yamaha products at Sam Ash.